Hey, welcome to my channel. I'm Amber, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a catch-up of everything that I have been reading recently. Um, I my reading year so far has been out of sorts. Um, I've in the past 2 years I have been keeping track of how my reading is and everything, and it is so out of the norm for me to not have started my year reading. But also, I've only read, if you include the month that we're currently in, 3 months out of the year so far, and that is just so out of the norm for me. But I have gotten to the point where like I've realized that I cannot force myself to read. Even if I do like want to read, like if I'm not able to read, I'm not going to force myself to read, because I have learned that if I try to force myself, I will not enjoy what I am reading. And I realized, first off, that when I read when I want to really read, I enjoy the books, but I also end up reading more because I really do want to read, and I'm letting myself um, do so. So I have just gotten to that point where like I am not going to force myself to read, and I don't really like the term reading slump because it's not a slump. We all go through phases of times when we want to read or we want to do something else, whatever other hobbies we may have, and we want to focus on that, and that's fine. I don't like that sense of like there's a negative connotation to us not reading. There's something negative about not reading, um, because reading is something that does take energy, a lot more energy than say watching a movie, to do so. And so like we need to recognize that how we read is fine. How much we read, how little we read. What matters is if we're getting something out of our reading, and if we're enjoying the process of reading and what we're reading. So like, yeah, a little bit of a rant there. I just sometimes get frustrated a little bit when I with this discussion of like reading slumps, and like people like complain about the reading slump, because like it's not a reading slump in my mind. It's just a time where your brain is like, I can't read anymore. My brain needs to rest. It needs to go and do something else, and that's normal. That's a normal process that everybody goes through, in all different areas. So, anyways, that being said, um, I've gotten to a point where I have just let myself be when it comes to that, and I've noticed a lot of positive changes. Although I still get frustrated when I don't read, and this year has been frustrating just because there were times when I wanted to read and I knew I was in the mood, but I just couldn't because I was dealing with a lot of anxiety in other areas of my life that was affecting this. So like, who knows how many books I would have already been able to read if I had been able to deal with the anxiety better. But either way, I've read 39 books so far, and that's crazy considering I've only read like 3 months out of the year. But 39 books is good, and I'm happy. And I try to not focus too much on the numbers, but like but I needed to say, because I was like, that's more than I would have expected for reading only 3 months out of the year, right? So like, but that also goes to show that 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 stance that I have, is true. That when I'm really in the mood for reading, I read a lot. I think my highest number this year of reading of books read was 18 books. I read 18 books in April. I read 15 in March, and I've already read seven. Well, six, and currently reading seven in August. So like, it's just like one of those things where you just know, and when you know how your brain works and you figure it out, you just go for it. So we all need to take our time to learn our brains, I guess, because my brain is like, I have to like have months of space. Apparently, that's the year where I took like 2 almost 3 months breaks between each of these reading months. But either way, I have been reading, and I've, like I said, I've read 6 books so far this month. And so I thought I would share with you what those are. I thought I first would talk about what I do have. All the books I've been reading have been coming from the library, so the majority of these books, except for these two, have been returned to the library. It's that part is like a little bit frustrating because I should be reading my own books, or at least doing a mix of both, but I just haven't been able to get myself to pick up my own books. All I want is to read these books. But anyways, the first 2 books are the first 2 parts of this manga trilogy called Goodbye My Rose Garden by Dr. Pepperco. And this is about Hanako, who ends up moving to England from Japan, and things don't exactly work out the way that she was planning when she gets there, and so she's in a little bit of a situation, and Lady Alice uh, meets her and sees her situation and decides that she will help her, but only if Hanako agrees to help kill her. And I really did enjoy these two parts. I do have the third one, and I just need to actually get to it. But I did not like the feeling of like these felt, as I finished them, felt incomplete. It felt like I was reading segments of one book rather than two separate books that are part of a larger story. So I just wasn't. I didn't really enjoy that aspect. I also think that there's a little bit of a mystery surrounding something with within the first two books, but it's revealed in the first at the end of the first book, and I didn't feel like it was handled very well because I knew right from the start, and here's the thing, like you could say that maybe the author wasn't trying to make it super mysterious or anything, but the fact that there is a reveal tells me that she didn't want you to fully know that it was that. And so because of that, I think that whole, like, it didn't succeed in like surprising me because I knew from the very beginning of the book what that mystery was. So other than that, but I really enjoyed it. I initially gave these 5 stars if I haven't already said this, but I am giving it 4 stars now because of those two things. But I do enjoy Hanako and Alice's story, and I am looking forward to actually finishing this out. The next thing that I read was Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This is the first book in a duology, and it's set in like a post-apocalyptic world, dystopian world. It's set in 2024, which when I realized that was a little bit, especially when reading it and realizing how realistic this author handled these issues, class issues, climate issues, especially. Like, that really hit home because this is set in California. I live in California, and I live in an area of California where it is very easy to see the drought and see that how hard it is. Like, and it's frustrating because people don't want to recognize, like, I have neighbors who overwater. Like, it pisses me off so much because, like, anyways, like, the way that she talks about, like, how crazy weather shifts, like, and there's, like, one state that was, like, frozen over, and, like, other places that were having earthquakes constantly in California, and, like, hurricanes and twisters, and it's, like, we're dealing with that. We're seeing how weather is acting out of norm, and it's like people want to completely ignore it because they want to live in their little bubble of safety, and it's like we're not safe. Whether it's in our lifetime or the next, this planet is going to be destroyed, and it's because of us. We are the ones destroying it, and if we don't try to come together and deal with these issues, what kind of planet are we going to have? Are we even going to have a planet? What are we doing for our next generation? Clearly not shit. It feels like we're not. So there's a lot of what she was discussing through this book was very timely and a little bit scary because it felt like something that could actually happen. But I only gave it 3.5 stars because I really did not enjoy the journalistic / diary way of telling the story. I felt like it kept me at arm's length from the story, and also it dragged the story down. It became tedious and boring in several parts of the book because of it. So I just didn't really enjoy the way it was written, which plays a huge part in how much I can enjoy the book that I'm reading at times. I don't know if people say, well, if you're enjoying the story, that's what matters. I'm like, but isn't how the story is told a huge part of the story? Anyways, I just don't like that. I didn't like the that style. Hopefully, the next book isn't told in the same way. I know that we do have journal entries from the mother, but it's told through her daughter's perspective. So, and I don't think that her perspective is told through that style. So hopefully, I will have a better experience with that one. But again, what this author is talking about is very important, vital, and timely. So I would recommend everybody to pick this book up. It's a better option, I think, than even The Handmaid's Tale. And I have issues with the author, so. But anyways, the next two books that I read are part of the Star Wars books. Now, I am challenging myself to read as many of these books that they have published as I can. I doubt, like, there's just no way that I will ever catch up to current releases. But I am working my way through as much as I can. I have read The Phantom of the Menace by Terry Brooks and Attack of the Clones by R.A. Salvatore. I cannot wait for the Clone Wars book that is on my way. So right now I'm working through all the novelizations of the movies. What I will say is that I never thought in my entire life that I would ever read a novelization of a film. Like, it's not something that I ever thought that was necessary. But and I actually wasn't planning on doing it here, but then they, in the notes in the list that I found, said that they do add in deleted scenes. So I was like, okay, well, at least I would be getting something new. But my mind has completely changed. My opinion has completely changed about it being necessary. I think that specifically for this, like, I don't know about other, like, films. Like, I know, like, there are other novelizations of other films outside of this franchise, but I don't know if it would be like the same experience or not. But I do know that with these ones, it added so much to the characters, to the story, to a lot of the things that were happening that we didn't even see, because they added it into different perspectives. And we got to hear from these characters that, like, in a lot of ways, because we don't get to hear their thoughts through the film, some things might get missed because of that. So I just absolutely love this. I will say that I do not like Anakin. I think that people who like him as a person, it's a bit of a red flag. He is possessive of Padme. He is obsessive, and I find it kind of gross that in the not Attack of the Clones, but in the Phantom Menace, especially in the book, they age him. He's 9 years old, but he's completely obsessed with her from the very moment that he meets. He's like, I'm gonna marry you. And I'm like, you're 9 years old. This is not just a cute crush. This is like obsessive behavior from the very start. And they don't age Padme, which again, it clearly cements the fact that they know that there's an issue with this whole situation. And if you watch the film, there's like a scene which was just, no. Romanticizing these two together when he's 9 years old, and I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be like an adult, but in the book, like, they like try to make it out, like they try to hammer in this idea that she's young, but they never specify her age, whereas they did with Anakin, which again tells me, and even in the next book they do not age her. So again, it tells me that there is an issue with this age gap. It's a significant age gap. I think that she's an adult at this point. If she's not 18, she's like very close to being 18. Like, they try to make it out, like they try to like twist it to make you forget that part in the first book, and in the next book, like, there's like, they kind of make you doubt a little bit, because they talk about certain things. Like, they talk about the fact that she was a child when she started her political life, but I still don't agree that she was that young. Like, I don't mind that a woman being older than the man. I mind the fact that she was a fucking adult. And I will never understand people who think that their romance is the beautiful sweet thing. Like, no, he wanted to control her. Thankfully, she would not let him do that. But the other issue is the fact that how Padme is treated throughout the films. In the book, we do get her perspective. In Attack of the Clones, we get her perspective, but it's still in the realm of like, oh, I want to be a political life, but I also love him. Like, you can't have both. And I know there's a complication of him being a Jedi, and therefore that there's a bit of an issue there, but like, still, either way, I'm not here for it. I feel like it's a bit of a red flag if people like Anakin slash Darth Vader. Like, I feel like they're both one and the same at this point. Like, Anakin, I think, would always have done what he did, whether it was towards the Tusken Raiders or somebody else. Like, he leaned towards that. I think at some point it would have ended up happening either way. And anybody who says that he turned to the good side at the end, I'm just like, no, he saved his son because he didn't want his son to die. He had dreams of taking over Palpatine's position and having Luke at his side as they ruled the universe. So, like, no. What he did by saving Luke was a selfish act. Yes, it was a good thing that he did it, but I don't think it was done out of the goodness of his heart, or he changed his side. Nobody commits genocide after genocide after genocide and then suddenly changes their mind in the twilight hours. Like, it just doesn't happen that way. Like, and we all know that he wanted Palpatine's position, and that he would have killed Palpatine at some point. It just ended up in order to save his son's life. And I still think that if he had been able to survive the damage that was caused to him by Palpatine, he wouldn't have been on the good side. He would have, like I said, be taken to Palpatine's position and tried to force or convince Luke to team up with him. Anyways, that's just how I see it. I do think that people who romanticize Anakin, big roast that you would do that. But anyways, I take issues, especially with the Phantom Menace and how they automatically made him like completely obsessed with her. Like, in the movie, I don't really feel like it was. It felt like a cute kid crush in a lot of ways, except for that one scene. And that Padme didn't really see him as anything but a child in that movie, except for that one scene, which was just creepy. So, like, no. I will say that in the movie Attack of the Clones, Anakin is so fucking annoying, especially at the beginning, and he is even more annoying in the book, mainly because you have to read it, which takes a little bit more time to get through. But I absolutely loved Attack of the Clones. I love the fact that we got Jango Fett's perspective, Shmi Skywalker's perspective. Like, there was like Mace Windu's perspective. Like, we get all these different perspectives. We get to know more of Obi-Wan's mindset and where he was, and it makes it very clear in the book that Obi-Wan knew about Anakin and Padme. He has suspicions. So, anybody who wants to say that he did not know that he was that dumb, you're wrong. He knew. He had his suspicions. Anyways, I cannot wait for the next book. It's going to be the Clone Wars, based off of the animated film, the Clone Wars. But yeah, that is that. The next book I read was At the End of Everything by Marieke Mishkamp, and I apologize if I mispronounced that. But this is a pandemic book, which I never thought I would read a pandemic book. I kept saying, well, I'll read books that are within a pandemic or during our pandemic, and talking about our pandemic, when the pandemic is over. But we're not going to be over with this pandemic because people, whether vaccinated or not, are refusing to wear masks. Like, I don't understand people, because, like, do you really want to risk getting sick? Like, even if you're vaccinated, you can deal with a lot of the bad aspects of this virus, especially because of these newer variants. So, like, but also just like on baseline, like, why would you want to be sick? Like, if you can avoid getting sick, why wouldn't you avoid it? Wearing a mask helps that process. You have a much lower chance of getting sick if you're wearing a mask. Point blank. But then on top of that, because you're vaccinated, somehow, who cares if you cause other people to get sick because you were exposed? Like, who gives two shits about other people, right? Like, it angers. I especially feel more angry at the people who were like, we need to wear a mask because, you know, we need to stop the spread. But then as soon as they got vaccinated, stopped wearing their mask, which just goes to show that their level of care was about preventing people from spreading COVID, because they themselves didn't want to get sick. And now that they are safe from death, they're like, who cares about if I get sick now? At least I'm not going to die. And who cares if I get other people sick, because it doesn't affect me. it's the hypocrisy, it's the cruelty that I see on a daily basis from people who refuse to wear a mask. And I am frustrated at seeing people not wearing masks. I do not care if you're vaccinated or not. You can get sick from COVID still, and you can get other people sick. Why aren't you wearing a fucking mask and actually caring about the people around you? It is ableist, it's eugenics, it's disgusting because you're saying that your life value is more valuable than the person next to you. Whether that's you walking outside, taking a walk, or in a fucking store, you can be exposed and you can expose others. And there is evidence that even just being outside, just coming across somebody outside, you can be exposed because of these newer variants. We have fucking monkeypox too. And it's like, and we have all these other viruses starting to pop up again because people refuse to get vaccinated. I am so sick and tired of the selfishness and cruelty, and I'm even more angry at the people who were masking up before the vaccine and now aren't, because you tricked me into thinking that you actually cared. At least the people who blatantly refused to wear masks from the start told you who they were from the start. Anyways, that's what I'm going to say about how I've been feeling about this, about the pandemic and the pandemic, because we're like, it feels like we're inside a pandemic at this point. And it's frustrating, it's anger reducing, and this is why I had been avoiding pandemic books, because I knew it would make me feel all these things even more so. At this point, it's come to the point of like, you're just learning to live with these emotions, and they're always going to be like right there. But I have come to like acceptance of those emotions and the fact that nobody cares. It feels like, and I have to say, like, I get it that I'm not the only one who continues to wear the mask and continues to care about the lives of others and not only their own self-interest. But it's hard to see it when I live in a town where like 1% of the population that I live in wears their mask. I feel like it's even less than that. It is frustrating because I think I said this already. I live in California, so like, you would not think that I live in one of the most progressive states, and I put that in quotation because like, are we that progressive? Who knows? But with how little people wear their mask and the fact that I am surrounded by fascist Trump supporters, like, I am disgusted. And I do not feel safe in my own space because of this, because people refuse to wear masks and because people support fascism. Anyways, I also like the other day saw a car with the Hydra symbol on it. There's no way that they don't know that that's like a but anyways, about this book, like I said, I never expected to read the pandemic book, but I saw somebody on my socials who read this book, and I clicked on it to see what it was about, and I just felt like it was very interesting. So it's about these teenagers who are in a juvenile center who are abandoned by, just one day, all the guards, all the people who work there, just gone. And they realized that they left because there was a plague that's been running rampant, and like, everything has been like completely shut down. So they have been abandoned by the system, by the government, and by everybody around them. And they are trying to figure out how to survive and who can they trust. And like, this book really deals with what it was like at the beginning of the pandemic, when we didn't know how it spread, how to protect ourselves. Like, there's all these unknowns, and like, it deals with that, but then it also deals with the emotions of people treating others as discardable, as castaways, as unworthy of care and protection. And it deals with all those elements. It also deals with how people, especially who were in the system, were treated and continue to be treated. But like, especially when there was like when we were at the beginning, when there was like all these unknowns, especially when it comes to people who were in juvenile centers, in the prison system. It talks about how they were basically abandoned. So it talks about all the anger, the fear, the mistrust, and even the hope that we experience throughout. So yeah, I give this 5 stars. It broke my heart, especially with what happens towards the end of the book. If you know, you know. And I felt like this author really hit home to a lot of things. And what I appreciate, and I feel like I shouldn't even have to say this, because like it should be a natural thing for authors that if you're dealing with topics that that actually there is a racial element to this topic, because it's dealing with the prison system, and we all know what the prison system targets and ends up unjustly being predominantly. She talks about and acknowledges the fact that the justice system is racially skewed against especially Black folks, and that we need criminal justice, we need racial justice, and that her main protagonists were all white because those were not her stories to tell. And I really appreciated the fact that she acknowledged that, and then not only that, gave you other resources, books from other authors of color who actually are their stories, and they talk about them, and they give you resources for you to go and check those out so that you can hear their stories. And I just really appreciated that from this author. Again, I don't feel like I should even have to, because this should be like a normal thing for authors to do, that if you're going to be talking about something or edging towards talking about something that isn't your place to do so, that you give resources, you acknowledge that and give resources, something along those lines. It should be a natural thing that we do. But yeah, I gave this 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. It was so powerful, and very moving, and also just kind of like hit home about things that I still am feeling like 3 years in. But yeah. So those are all the things I have read. I am currently reading Legends and Lattes by Travis Balgi. This is about Viv, who is an orc barbarian. She cashes out of the warrior's life. She's tired of that life, and she just wants to open up a coffee shop and just live in peace. But where she settles, she ends up having to fight to protect her coffee shop and the life that she is starting to create for herself there. And also there is a sapphic romance, and I am very much here for that. What I will say is that we're 100 pages in, and I feel like we're just like getting into the meat of the story. Like I just don't feel like we're like there, and I'm frustrated a little bit with that, because I feel like the story should have already been happening. I feel like we're just kind of being introduced to like her starting up her coffee shop and like the starting of it, and things are building up, but like it's cute, it's sweet, but I want and we're getting like hints of where it's going, who's kind of the villain and everything, but like it feels like it's taking a little bit too long for me. And maybe that's just because like when you think fantasy you think action, but this is more like a cozy thing, and I'm really enjoying it, but I just want a little bit more. Like we're 100 pages in, and like Tandri and her are barely just starting to get to know each other, so I'm just like, give me more, give me what I want. But anyways, that is all I have to say. Those are all the things that I have read. I would love to hear from you if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them, and what you have been reading yourself recently. And until next time, thank you all so much for watching.